June's tier shifts have come today, and so I got y'all a little appetizer video. I want to upload these on the day that they actually happen, and I still have a video already scheduled for later today. I don't feel like moving that to tomorrow, so we're just gonna have two uploads today. Don't think anyone will complain about that. So let's talk about it. These tier shifts are interesting for NU because they impact a lot of future tiering plans and change the meta up a significant amount. So let's get talking about it. So I'm going to first talk about these three Pokemon very, very briefly, just because they're NU BLs rising to RU. All this means is that Barraskewda, Florges, and Oricorio Sinsu will no longer be eligible for retesting into NU if we felt like the tier was stable and that's, one of them could have been balanced if we tested it down. That's really all there is there. I mean, the only Pokemon that I see here that would have even been up for debate is maybe Oricorio Sensu, and that would have involved Terra being banned, I think. Because I think Florges and Scuda would be viewed broken no matter what, and in this mod, may be balanced if it can't Terra. So that's really all there is there. Now we gotta talk about these three here. The Pokemon that NU lost: Lycanroc, Passimian, and Zoroark. So Passimian should not be a shocker to anyone. I have been saying for weeks now, Passimian is likely leaving to RU. And tomorrow, we actually have a little upload that now I know the title of, where we use Passimian as a final farewell to it. The Mon was obviously no longer at its peak in NU, but it was still like, somewhere in the top 10 for best Pokemon in the tier, because it's just always been a super consistent Choice Scarf user. You got U-turn, you got Knockoff, Terra Fighting, Close Combat late game is just super duper nice. Defiant, making things like Quillfish just straight up unwilling to run Intimidate, which I thought was always really cool. And losing it's kind of annoying because, again, you pinch the options of Pokemon to use a bit more. But it's not the killer that it could have been. Now, what maybe will make its loss feel a little bit more bittersweet, though, is that we did lose Zoroark as well, which, not really a bad thing either, because a lot of people weren't happy with Zoroark's place in the tier. Strong as hell, fast as hell. Really hard to play around Illusion this generation, just given power levels so much lower, and as a result, those Illusion 50-50s become a lot more profound, because, think about last generation, where we had better defensive Pokemon. Zoroark was just weaker by comparison. When you talk about relative strength, we're looking at the SS metagame versus the SV metagame. No one will deny the fact that SV's defensive power level is lower than SS's. And so, back in Scarlet Violet, back in Sword and Shield, you had Pokemon like Sylveon that could always pretty consistently switch into Zoroark. You had like a Solvus Copperajah that was going to switch into it. You had Vaporeon, which we still have now, but you had Vaporeon back then as well. We had Diancie. We had a lot more options. That made Zoroark's life just not as easy. Made it a lot harder to wall break with. And this generation, it's just click specs moves, or like even sword stance moves. Click knockoff. All these moves Zoroark used were just super free. The Mon was able to basically break any defensive core that it needed to. And when we talk back about those Illusion Mind games being so much more dangerous this generation, it's because, when you mispredict, you're not going to something as bulky as a Sylveon or Diancie. You're going to something like a Solvest Electros, which might just get knocked and then Dark Pulsed 2 times later and get KO'd. So losing Zoroark, it kind of sucks because, again, it was one of those fast pivots that sort of rose as an alternative to Passimian. Even if a lot of it was independent of Passimian's relevancy, Zoroark just rose because it was a super duper great option. It was still nice because you didn't have to use Passimian. You could go like Zoroark plus Scyther and still feel pretty good about your ability to have pivoting a fast Mon to revenge kill offensive threats on your team. It was another option for a Choice Scarf user even. But I think long-term for the health of the metagame, Zoroark leaving is very nice. And it also makes our next suspect test a lot more clear. There's a little bit of NUTL insider info here, and this is just my opinion as well. So let's make that clear. This isn't what Council is going to do. But I said this when Zoroark was in the tier. I think the two Pokemon that need to be looked at the most are Dunsparce and Electros, because bulky setup sweepers with Terra are just really hard to deal with, especially for our level of strength in NU. I think now it becomes really, really clear that one of those two mons can get looked at because there's not the, other option, which it was Zoroark, based on community consensus and even people within council. So that's how that impacts the tier. Lycanroc leaving, this is a great day as far as I'm concerned. I'm gonna move my mic a little bit away from my face. But Lycanroc leaving means I don't have to keep running into lead HO with it. Yes, they'll use Bombardier instead. How many times I've been in Alive and complained about having to play around the stupid Endeavor? I'm tired of this move. So, at least for 1 month, I have a little bit of freedom. No more must I be endeavored by the stupid dog. So that's nice. I mean, if you want to look at it from a tour game standpoint, Lycanroc had also been getting actually a decent amount of use on Sand. So you'd have eject button Sandaconda with Sand Spit, you'd switch in, eject button on out, bring in Lycanroc. And, I covered that one tour game that had the Choice Specs Berserker on it to try to lure in Sandaconda on the opposing team. A lot of other teams would run like Croak as an option trying to weaken Sandaconda. Just the idea of those teams was, yeah, you're facilitating for Lycanroc under Sand to win the game. So now we don't have to look at that anymore, which I think long-term is probably for the best. And oh boy, look at this. It's beautiful. A rapid spinner has fallen in you. We get Kamala Harris. It's beautiful. I have no clue how good Kamala will be. On paper, it should at least be relevant because, again, it is a rapid spinner. And NU's current best spinner user is probably what? Toadscool? Quaxwell? Carkle? If I didn't tell you I was talking about NU, you might mistake me for beating a PU player instead. But no. That's probably NU's best options, but now Kamala steps in. It's also a Wish Passer, which is interesting. It's got bulk up, so maybe we see stuff with Terra, which will be, of course, much less fun. But, hey, Spin is great. Maybe Assault Vest Kamala could be nice for the tier. I don't know. Let me live in this moment of bliss where we've got a rapid spinner for once in our sweet little format. And then, to finish it all off, let's look at some of the more stuff that has to do with PU, as well as NU. Magneton and Vivillon, both from PU-BL, rising up into NU, so we didn't actually take anything from PU, just from their ban list. Vivillon makes a lot of sense, mostly because of ladder offense. Vivillon is super duper scary. I hate facing that Pokemon. It's a problem. Fast Sleep Powder, Quiver Dance, not much really stops you. It's like Assault Vest Eel, occasionally Scarf Rotom, and not a ton else really super consistent, other than well-timed Terras, / general offensive pressure. Because at the end of the day, Vivillon's pretty reliant on its own Terra, I've found at least, to secure truly safe setup chances. You've got situations where it's like, okay, I'm Terra Ground, so there's Scarf Rotoms coming in, they think I'm gonna switch, so they Volt Switch instead, or they Volt just to break the Sash, and then I Terra Ground, I block that, and I get an extra Quiver, for example. Or when Passimian was in the tier, you could have Terra Ghost and block CC, because unfortunately for Vivillon, CC breaks mid-sub. Or you could just, Ghost the more relevant case, which still applies, with Chansey. You've got Terra Ghost to make Chansey complete setup fodder, which is pretty nice. Magneton Rising, I'm a little less sure on why it did, but, Specs Analytic is strong. It's a Steel type if you want to run some of those bulkier sets with a Violite. So there's some good to it. And in mons that we dropped into PU, Rotom Frost, I think it's not terrible right now, as we mentioned. Ice types are really good in NU. Rotom Frost is an Ice type. But Blizzard, having to rely on that for your Ice move is pretty cringe. And frankly, I prefer Glaceon as a result. I just gotta click Ice Beam with that Mon, man. And it's a lot more simple. And then we got Zangoose. I've probably been calling this Mon terrible for 2 months now, so it's gonna happen a little bit ago, but hey, better late than never. Zangoose's issue for me has always just been, even when you get the Toxic Orb boost, you're not actually that strong. The Sandaconda vibe check has never been passed by a Zangoose before. And even when we had Passimian around, it's a Scarfer that Zangoose couldn't really bypass. And in Belly Jump sets, look, dual screens haven't been relevant in NU for months. And if you somehow manage to get a belly drum up in a normal game nowadays, I don't know how you're doing it, but I hope you get a win because you deserve it. But I hope y'all enjoyed this. Again, it's a little quicker video. Just wanted to make sure something goes up, but also because the tier shifts, they're important, but they're not as important as maybe they could have been. So yeah, there's not like a ton to talk about other than woohoo Zoroark gone, wow Passimian gone, I totally didn't predict that, and then oh my goodness, look, we have a rapid spinner. So I hope y'all enjoyed this. Like I said, be on the lookout later today for this little collab video with the PokeMMD. I'll catch you next time. Peace.